The Boyue Likebook Mars is a 7.8-inch Android tablet with a Wacom-style pen and 1404 by 1872 e-ink display. It has 2 GB of RAM, 32 GB of storage, a sufficiently speedy Freescale RK3365 8-core processor, and runs Android 6.0. And while the specs are nothing to write home about, they are on par with other Android devices in this category. The Muses is the Pro model to the Likebook Mars, each playing competitor to the Boox Nova and the Nova Pro. And while the core specs of the devices are mostly the same, there are a few differences between the two models. The Muses adds USB-C, has an additional 16 GB of internal storage, a pressure-sensitive pen, built-in speakers, a built-in microphone, and a dedicated back button. What's strange is Likebook did remove the 3.5mm headphone jack and the micro SD card from the Mars, two decidedly pro features from their Pro model. Users who need either of those features will need to stick with the Mars or upgrade to the larger Mimas. The main purpose of any e-reader is reading, which the Muses is unsurprisingly adept at doing. The default software can load in multiple formats, including EPUB, as well as MOBI and PDF. While the screen resolution is high enough to make all the words and images sharp and clear. Page turns are sufficiently speedy, and for those seeking additional speed, you can enable A2 mode to increase the page turn speed while sacrificing detail. The nearly 8-inch screen is large enough that reading with larger fonts or seeing small details in comics is easily accomplished, and it's still small enough to fit into a bag or purse. I personally couldn't fit it into my pocket, so it may be too large for those wishing to travel light. The larger Mimas has a 13.3-inch display, which in theory should make it easier and more suited for comics and manga, but it has the same screen resolution, so you aren't really sacrificing any detail with a smaller screen. Most manga and comic books are physically larger than the Muses though, so the artwork and wording may be a little bit smaller than life size, so keep that in mind if you struggle to read smaller text. The screen is front lit with either white or orange lights, so reading in the dark is both customizable and possible. Battery life while reading is good, and estimated about 12 hours of reading time with Wi-Fi and backlight off seems attainable. And the Muses battery is about 10% bigger than what's available in the Boox models, so you might get a bit more battery life out of this. The hardware itself is well built. There are no creaks when holding the device, and the front here is plastic that should hide skin oil and grease better than the black, although it's white so it may look dirtier over time. The back plate is metal, and it's pretty easy to grip. Even under heavy use, the Muses never gets too warm and maxed out around 31°C or 88 degrees Fahrenheit when stress testing. There's only 2 buttons in the Muses, the power button down here and the back button, which does leave you touching the screen for a lot of the page turns, for volume changes, for exiting apps, etc. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but as many reading devices also only use the touchscreen, but there isn't currently a way to reassign this unlabeled back button to anything else, so you are stuck with it. I do find the lack of volume controls probably the most unusual, since this does have physical speakers, but I don't suspect many people will be using them, so it's not that big an issue. The speakers do get quite loud. Not quite as loud as what's on my Pixel 2, but they're definitely usable in a pinch. The microphone is so well integrated into the housing that I thought it was a manufacturing defect at first, but it does capture your voice well enough so you could use it for dictation. The included pen works well and has a dedicated eraser function, but there is a side button that seemingly does nothing, or at least I haven't figured out what it does yet. Not sure if this is something they will enable in the future or just a byproduct of using a generic pen, since the book devices appear to use the same one. There isn't a place to store the pen inside the device. There is a little loop for it in the case, so I'm sure that a lot of people will probably just leave it at home when they don't need it. Like any device, there are always quirks in operation. The Likebook Muses is no exception. The most obvious is the lack of documentation, and outside a little quick start guide that comes in the box, there isn't much to help you learn about what your tablet can and can't do. If you want to figure out how to change an obscure setting, you might as well ask online. Well, if paper manual isn't required, I would have expected a full manual to be included as an EPUB, since this is an e-reader. There are sometimes odd translations that don't help things either, and I stared at this boot from boot option until I hopefully surmised correctly that it means load on boot as opposed to remove from boot. And you often have to discover how an unlabeled icon works just by trial and error, just seeing what settings are available in each one. I still haven't figured out how to take screenshots with this, even though there is a setting menu for the screenshots. Further complicating the issue is that the Likebook has two settings menus. So there's one that's for the Likebook and one that is the standard Google menu. Some settings are available in both, but some, like lock screen wallpaper, are only available in one or the other. Some seemingly easy tasks, like changing the lock screen wallpaper, become multi-step processes. You manually have to move your images into a folder using the Files app for them to even be recognized. And then, once you do that, then it'll stretch the images if the aspect ratio is not the same as the screen. The pull-down notification menu that's from every other Android device is present, but it will only stay open if you press in the notification bar instead of pull. If you want to install Google Books, which is one of only 12 apps included in the device's app store, it does install, but then it won't let you use it since Muses doesn't ship with Google services. Things like this annoy people who don't know how to work around them, but those who don't may find that the lack of polish disappointing or frustrating. Google Play and Google services should be coming in future firmware, but as of now, almost nothing Google will work. So what are the downsides of getting a Muses versus the traditional e-reader, such as a Kindle or an Android tablet? The battery life is very good when reading for an Android device, although still short of what the Kindle will give you. Just like an Android device though, if you load it up with CPU-intensive tasks, you could easily drain the battery in 90 minutes. To increase battery, the system wants to shut down after as little as 20 minutes of use, which thankfully you can disable, but a Kindle would remain on 24/7 by default. You can increase the battery life by limiting the number of background processes in the developer settings, but it's not something every user would know how to do. The screen is multi-touch, but only for 2 fingers, and you can't use like your pen and the finger at the same time. The screen is front lit with only a little bit of light bleed at the bottom, but you can't mix the 2 colors like you can on other devices. And since there is no light sensor, it can be hard to enable the light through software buttons if you're already in a dark location. There are different display modes, standard and A2, and each one has its advantages. Standard produces more shades of gray and cleaner images, but refreshes slowly and can produce gradient banding. A2 limits the shades of gray in exchange for a faster refresh and dithers the image to produce smoother gradients. But increased ghosting and loss in detail due to dithering can reduce the quality. Luckily, you can change with mode ranges using the dedicated software buttons in the menu bar, or you can do it by an app-by-app basis in the settings. Neither one is always the best option. You also do have the contrast controls to help you dial in the shades of gray, but leaving it close to the minimum seems to work best for me, and there are still times when the text and color on a background is hidden because they're both assigned to the same shade of gray. When it comes to actually reading, the default reader is great for PDFs and for more simple EPUBs, but more complex files can become unreadable. You can always install something like the Moon Plus reader, which handles everything fine, but it's one more step that the Kindle wouldn't have to do. Kindle devices don't offer pen support, so note takers and doodlers will be much better suited with the Muses, but the pen will make a pretty rough scratching noise until the pen tip is worn down. While it's technically possible for the Muses to play video, the lag in the display makes video always behind the audio by at least half a second, so a proper tablet would be better suited for your video needs. The Muses does add USB-C, which is great for users trying to carry only one charger, but it doesn't support USB on the go, so you can't load things from a flash drive, although you can send files using the included Wi-Fi app. And oddly, it won't even recognize all USB fast chargers, including the one that came with my Samsung Chromebook, which works just fine on my Pixel 2. The Muses won't charge at all, so you may need to carry 2 chargers anyway. So who is the Likebook Muses for, and should you get one? If you are primarily looking for a reading device and are either not tied to one ebook store like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, or want to be able to do a bit more with their hardware than the more unitasker approach from Amazon and Kobo, the Muses may be what you're looking for. Anyone looking at the Muses should also cross-shop the Mars, since that device is cheaper, and the Mimas, which is the larger edition and does include the 3.5mm headphone jack and the TF card reader, and also the Onyx Boox Nova Pro, which is similarly equipped and priced as the Muses, but it does offer handwriting recognition as well as a better front light control. All of these are similarly capable devices and should perform most tasks identically well. But for $300, the Muses hits a nice middle point for features, portability, and price. You may want to hold off until they get the Google Play Store available, but even now the Muses is a good option for users who want to do more with their ebook reader and can work around its limitations. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Elwich Low Tech, and this has been a quick review of the Likebook Muses. Subscribe.